Money. It's one of the most talked about things in the world. There's references to money all throughout pop culture, from music to movies to TV shows. You don't have to look far to find references to money. No matter our generation, our country, our family upbringing, our ethnicity, money always seems to be near the top of our minds and something we can't help but think about. Hey students, my name is David, and if you're anything like me, just hearing the word money brings up all kinds of thoughts and questions. Is it bad to care about money? Is it wrong to want more of it? Is it okay to talk about money in church? Well, it's totally okay to talk about money in church, and in fact, we believe that the church should be the safest place in the world to talk about anything, including money. And that's exactly what we're here doing today. So here's the thing, no matter who you are, there's a couple things that are true for all of us when it comes to money. First, we all wish we had more. You have some stuff that you'd love to get and do. There are clothes and shoes you want. There are clothing stores and vacations and a whole number of events and places you want to go. More money equals better things, and you want better things. Or maybe money isn't even a source of stress or tension in your family. Whatever your situation is, we all feel some level of want, because when it comes to money, we all have an appetite for more. And an appetite is never fully satisfied. We think that if we can get a magic amount, or if we got certain things, that we'd never need more again. But it doesn't work that way, does it? Eventually, there will be something else we want. The cycle doesn't end. Second, money can be frustrating. Some of us feel trapped because we don't have a lot of it, and we have no control over the amount our family has. Some of us don't work, and we don't get a say in how our parents spend the money that we have. Or maybe we work, but the money that we have goes towards taking care of the family or saving up for college. Maybe you just have enough, but never any extra to do things like travel or eat out when you want. Maybe money causes tensions or arguments in your family, and you feel like if you had more, maybe the fighting would stop. Or maybe you think that if money weren't such a source of stress, you and your siblings wouldn't have to worry about some of the things that you do. If we're honest, we all probably feel a bit angry at times about all this money stuff. Angry at God because we feel like He's not providing what we need. Angry at your parents for making certain choices that have caused your family to have the financial struggles that you do. Or maybe even angry if your parents have to spend all their time making money and not much time with you. Maybe you're angry at the world because you look around and it all seems unfair. Maybe you're angry or judgmental towards others who seem to have more than enough but don't have to work as hard, or just take it for granted. All these things can create tension, which can make us think that money is bad. But here's the truth. Just because money is complicated doesn't make it bad. In fact, because it's so complicated, it matters even more that we learn to see it and talk about it in a healthy way. In case you thought that God doesn't care about money, consider this. The Bible mentions money more than 2,000 times all throughout the Old and New Testament, meaning that we aren't the first people to struggle with our thoughts and feelings about money. Money has been complicated as long as it has existed. We're going to look today at a letter written by a first-century follower of Jesus named Paul, who wrote to his friend and protege Timothy. Timothy was kind of like a son to Paul, so when Paul wrote to Timothy, he was writing as a father figure, a wise mentor and friend, who wanted what was best for Timothy. Here's what Paul writes: "Yet true godliness with contentment is itself great wealth. After all, we brought nothing with us when we came into this world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave it. So if we have enough food and clothing, let us be content. But people who long to be rich fall into temptation and are trapped by many foolish and harmful desires that plunge them into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And some people, craving money, have wandered from the true faith and pierced themselves with many sorrows." 1 Timothy 6:6-10. The first thing I want to point out from this verse is that money isn't the problem. It's the love of money, the longing of riches, and the lack of contentment with what we have that causes a problem. When Paul says the love of money, he's talking about an unhealthy obsession with money that's never satisfied. Like when your appetite for it begins to control you. It's on your mind all the time, and it's all you can think about. And when it becomes that big of a voice in your life, it can lead you to make decisions that you might regret later. And to be clear, I'm not talking about when there's a legitimate reason for needing money. We all need money to meet basic needs. Paul is talking about when your needs are taken care of, and then some, and still these people's whole motivation in life is chasing and hoarding money to the point where they're never, ever satisfied. An obsession with or a love of money can become a problem because it can lead you to make compromises on things you might otherwise have seen as wrong, all to satisfy your appetite for more. Things like greed, stealing, lying, jealousy can all be connected to a love of money. And when Paul said, "pierced with many sorrows," he's basically saying that these things will eventually come back and hurt you. There are consequences either in your life or to your character. Paul says that loving money is at the root or at the start of evil. And that may seem a little dramatic. Is it really evil to love the idea of getting the latest iPhone? No. He's saying that if you find something evil in the world, there's a good chance that when you trace it back down to its root or cause, you'll find someone loving money or the power they feel from having money. The word he uses here for evil simply means that things aren't as they should be. A love of money can make us see things that are not okay as okay. For example, we can find ourselves basing people's worth as humans on how much money they have or don't have. We might lie about how many hours we worked to get more money on our paycheck, or we might make decisions at someone else's expense because it benefits us. And none of that is okay, but a love of money can lead to it. So what's the alternative to having an unhealthy love for money? Jesus tells us, and Matthew wrote it down. He records Jesus saying this: "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moth and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there also your heart will be." The first part of this verse makes one point. Every material thing on earth will eventually be trash or can be taken from you. It's a reminder to challenge what we value the most. And the last part of this verse is key. The material things that take up your thoughts, your desires, your time, and your energy, that's what's most important to you. And if an unhealthy obsession with money or material things that money gives you takes up that much space in your life, you're following something that will not quite satisfy you. An appetite for material things is an acquired taste. When we're born, we didn't want anything but love and food and sleep. Now, we want that and the new iPhone, that and the most money, that and whatever outfit will get us noticed. Let me ask you, what's the last thing that you bought that satisfied you? And how long were you satisfied before you wanted something else? That's the thing about stuff. When we don't have that thing, when it's just out of our reach, when it's just behind a closed door or a sealed box, it seems like that. That's the one thing I need, and when I get that one thing that I don't have, then I won't really want anything else ever again. For now. So we get that thing and then we're cool for a minute, but as long as there are other closed boxes or other things out there that we want, we'll always want more. Our appetite for more continues to grow and grow. But here's the thing, appetites can change. Not overnight, but you see, contentment, choosing not to be controlled by the extras of life, takes practice and maturity. Contentment is an acquired taste. The more you look for contentment, when you crave it and you desire it, the better you get at noticing the difference between temporal fulfillment and eternal value. You get better at making decisions about how to view money, not as a magic cure for all your deepest human desires like acceptance or love or purpose. You begin to see it as a tool to meet basic needs, to serve others, and to provide enjoyment, not fulfillment, in life. Fill your hands with material things, and you realize it's a lot harder to serve when our fists are clutching things. It's a lot harder to worship when our hands are filled with things, and it's a lot harder to give when we have a death grip on our things. At the end of the day, you have a choice. You can own money, or you can let money own you. Again, just so we're clear, I'm not talking about those of us who need money for basic needs like food and a home. Needing money for those things is tremendously stressful and does take up lots of space in your life, and it should. Everyone deserves those things, but the truth is that money might be able to give your family a stable home and food in the fridge, but it can't give your family happiness. And that's what I'm talking about. Feeding the craving for more and more money to buy ourselves happiness and satisfaction just doesn't work. And we know this already, right? Because after we got that new pair of Jordans, we don't stop wanting shoes. We love the iPhone 11 until the iPhone 12 comes out. And after we go on a trip with family or friends, we start planning the next one. That isn't bad, but it reminds us that the happiness we get from these things just doesn't last. We're feeding an appetite. And the more you feed an appetite, the more it increases and gets bigger and bigger, and you're less satisfied as it stays. Think about the things you wanted in the past as a kid. You told your parents that if you got it, you'd never ask for anything again. And today, well, you can probably barely remember those things, because that's what an appetite does. It gets so strong and it makes you believe that feeding it is the only thing that matters until you feed it. And then in no time at all, you forget about it because you've moved on to wanting something else. Instead, Jesus is telling us to focus our hearts on eternal things, on things that matter and last. You can't measure, count, or touch these things, but in the end, they make your life better. Things like love, compassion, kindness, honesty, selflessness, and service, these are eternal things. These are the things that become building blocks to make you into the kind of person you want to be. And it lasts. Now, that doesn't mean we can't ever want anything again, and it doesn't mean we need to feel guilty for wanting money to buy the new shirt. It just means that we need to understand the reason behind the want. Why do we want this thing? What do we think that it will do for us? Do we see this thing as being the answer to how we see ourselves or the way we want the world to see us? When we understand that we're looking for money to give us something that Jesus has already given us, it changes how we view money. For example, maybe you want the new shoes to fit in. That's okay, but just know that you already belong to Jesus. Material things can't take away or add worth to who you are. Maybe you want that nicer car because you want everyone to think your family has it all. Again, you are just as loved, valued, and important whether you have that car or not. When we look to money to give us something it was never meant to give us, we'll end up disappointed and stuck in an endless cycle of growing appetite and shrinking happiness. Money is meant to be a resource for day-to-day life, not the source of our worth as a human being. Money simply cannot deliver what the eternal things of Jesus can, like the fact that you are never alone if you have Jesus, and that God loves you unconditionally because you belong to God, or that you are made on purpose with a purpose to help make the world better. In the end, money is a big deal. It does matter. We need it to meet our basic needs, and having it makes so much of life easier to navigate. But there are things that money can't do. It can't make us more or less of a person. It can't provide real friendships or community, and we can't give it more power than God intended for it to have. Instead, we must keep it in its proper perspective. Here's a simple way to remember it. You can own money, or money can own you. So as you think about your attitude of money, take a look at your heart and ask some questions. What are you expecting money to do for you? What do you want from it? Are you hoping for happiness, to be more popular, to make your family get along, or to make you stop worrying about the future? Is what you're wanting a temporary thing or an eternal thing? Money may give you a boost in your reputation for a minute, but not forever. At the same time, if you're living in the fear of basic needs not being taken care of, there's nothing wrong with wanting and needing those needs to be provided for. And money can do that, which is why the next question is also important to ask. Can money actually give you what you really want? Sure, money can do some things. It can supply basic needs, and that's extremely important. Money does matter, but it can't do everything. And when you understand what it can do and what it can't do, you can keep an appetite for more of it from taking over your heart. What change do you need to make in your attitude toward money? Maybe it's changing the way you use the money you have. Maybe it's addressing some of the anger you feel around it. Maybe it's asking for help getting the real needs of your family met. Maybe it's changing the way you see people or view people who have more or less than you. Imagine if we reach the end of our lives, we look back and realize that our hearts were invested in eternal things, things that Jesus wants for us instead of material things that money can buy. Imagine how much more fulfilled our lives would be. Think about how much better our lives would be. As small groups, we can encourage each other to view money in a healthy way. It's important because while money does matter, your attitude about it matters so much more.